introduce you to Katie Rathman, as she is our honors presenter of the hour, and half hour, not to shake you up. And she's the daughter of Steve and Ann Rathman. Steve has been a police officer for over 32 years, which has interested Katie, and she's been talking about it during the time that we've been working together. And while at Wayne, Katie's been a part of many clubs, including Honors Club, Student Senate, Theta Phi Alpha, and has been on the Dean's List all 4 years. I have a connection to Katie because she's part of the RLOB program, and as I was saying, we get this unique opportunity to meet RLOB students before they come to Wayne State. So we see them as a high school student and as they progress through the program, which is very rewarding. And I'm so excited that Katie plans to attend law school. I just found out she's in the fall of 2024 after her second stint at Disney, where she'll be part of the cast. So very excited about that kind of opportunity for her too, and impressed that she's been able to get through in this amount of time. And thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to work with you. And I'm going to give you the cords now so that you have them on during the pictures, and you can write the congratulations as well.
Thank you so much. Well, hello everyone. Today we are going to be talking about manipulation in Nebraska's legal and corporate environment. Just a little overview, we are going to be talking about the dark triad and some of its traits, the 8th Circuit and what all of it entails, Nebraska's legal environment, and how the dark triad and the legal environment affect one another. So first we are going to be talking a little bit about the dark triad. The first trait of the dark triad is psychopathy. Psychopathy is known for its high levels of impulsivity, arrogance, and a thrill-seeking nature. Next would be Machiavellianism. It's the willingness to pursue amoral means to obtain personal gain while showing distrust in others, and it is characterized by an exploitive and manipulative personality. The last trait is narcissism. It's associated with a sense of grandiosity, entitlement, dominance, and feelings of superiority. All of these traits work together to make what is known as the dark triad. First, we're going to talk about psychopathy. It's known for this callous behavior, lower levels of empathy, antisocial behavior, a lower sense of remorse. Anybody who's known as that psychopath, they feel that rules don't really apply to them. They have this lower emotional intelligence about them. They're known to be emotionally and verbally abusive. They have this self-destruction about them, and they're also known to sabotage not only themselves, but the people who are close to them. They also have this high emotional abuse about them. They crave this imbalance in power. They always want to be at the top of the food chain while they're looking at the people below them. Then inside the corporate world, anybody who's known to be a psychopath within the corporate world, it's going to lead to either faulty management or superior management, but either one, it can lead to chaos and disorganization. Within the faulty management, if you have that chaos and disorganization, it's going to have them putting other people down, leading to that distrustful work environment. But with that superior management, it can also lead to this chaos and disorganization, but it can also be a good thing. It can lead to a better work ethic, have a better work environment, but again, as I said, it can have this disorganization as well because, again, you are putting people down, and that's not what everybody wants in that work environment. Corporate psychopaths are going to exploit others and the organization without empathy or remorse to achieve their ends. It is known that 21% of corporate executives are known to be what is called a corporate psychopath. They're known to have this cool-headedness about them, a risk-taking ability, high confidence, and persuasion and charming skills. With this, they're going to take these high risks that end up being high rewards. Anything that is this high risk that's not really willing or wanting people to take in the first place, something that people wouldn't normally look at, this is worth taking. In the end, anybody who's known to have psychopathy, they just want this power at the end of the day. It doesn't really matter what the cost is, whether this be their colleagues, their friends, anybody that they're working with, as long as they can be at the top, or whether it costs the business money or going bankrupt in the long run. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about Machiavellianism. It's named after the 15th century Italian Renaissance theorist Niccolo Machiavelli in his work. It's based on the book that he wrote called The Prince. It's written in 1532. He wrote this book to show how the upper class attempts to maintain power through carefully planned deeds that were known to be cruel and immoral depending on the situation. Anybody who is known to have this trait Machiavellianism, they tend to be immoral, opportunistic, cunning, and devious. They have this personality of being aggressive and competitive. Having Machiavellianism, people link this with manipulation, exploitation of others. That's how the population really links with them. But it can also be a positive trait as well. One of the most positive traits would be ambition. But again, the overall population is going to link this not really with the good deeds, but more with the negative deeds, again with manipulation and exploitation. Inside the corporate world, people who are known as mocks, which is the characteristic of Machiavellianism, they're going to change from being highly cooperative to highly competitive in the blink of an eye. They're always going to try and get that upper hand, which is quite like psychopathy. They're extremely task-oriented leadership style people, which can be a good thing, but they're more going to take it towards the negative side of everything. They're going to focus on getting that task done while getting their recognition for it. They're going to try and work their way up the ladder and getting recognition every single step of the way. Even if it's for the smallest of things, they're just going to try and get that recognition, getting as high as they can within the company. And the last trait we're going to talk about is narcissism. Narcissism originates from Greek mythology. It's from the young male Narcissus. He was consumed by his beauty and greatness. He was extremely arrogant when dealing with others. Anybody who is narcissist, they're willing to engage in exploitation, exhibitionism, and the self-interest about themselves. People who are narcissists, they display these characteristics of vanity and arrogance. They expect to be liked, admired, respected. They want to be the big shot in the room. They think that they are the best people and most respected in that room. Inside the work environment, their goal is to advance themselves within an organization. It's much like psychopathy and Machiavellianism. While those two are wanting to be at the top of the top with the food chain, narcissism is they want to be the most respected in the food chain. They don't necessarily want to be at the top of everybody else. They think that they are the best. They look at themselves in the room and like, I'm the most powerful person here. I should be respected for that. They seek opportunities to exploit the situation and others for profit and attention and view themselves as powerful and essential. As I said, that they are going to look at themselves in a room and they think that everybody else should be thankful that that other people are in their presence. And Helmick and Helmick have once said that self-concern translates into poor attentiveness and responsiveness to the perspectives, suggestions, and experiences of colleagues. This quote might be a little confusing, but if you break it down, this basically says if you are working with a narcissist, you're going to have to pick up the slack for them because they're just going to sit back and take credit for everybody else's work because they are going to say, I'm doing all this work, I'm going to say I'm doing this, I'm doing that, thinking I'm so full of myself, while everybody else is doing all the work because in reality, they're not doing much, they're just going to take their credit for it. Next, we're going to watch a couple videos. The first video is going to be on the narcissistic personality disorder. It's shown how people in real life or in modern day videos feel about themselves and how they think so highly about themselves within a business world, business aspect, and if they are taken out of this business aspect, the business itself is going to go belly up.
People with NPD often have a grandiose feeling of self-importance.
And I remember, too, the day you left home, so full of bitterness and grandiose ideas, so full of yourself.
Do you know what would happen if I suddenly decided to stop going into work? A business big enough that it could be listed on the NASDAQ goes belly up, disappears. It ceases to exist without me. No, you clearly don't know who you're talking to, so let me clue you in. I am not in danger, Skylar. I am the danger. A guy opens his door and gets shot, you think that of me? No. I am the one who knocks.
NPD patients.
So that's just a modern day video showing that people really think very highly of themselves, and within that business, if if they're taken out, that business is not gonna succeed. And then the next video is showing just a review of all the dark triad traits and how they all work together.
Hey Psych2Goers, welcome back to another Psych2Go video. Have you ever heard of the dark triad of personalities? What is the dark triad and how was it discovered? So, the dark triad is 3 overlapping yet distinct personalities: subclinical narcissism, subclinical psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. By subclinical, we mean that someone might show the traits of a narcissist or psychopath, but they're not severe enough to be diagnosed as a disorder. In 2002, Delroy L. Paulus and Kevin M. Williams at the University of British Columbia did a study on whether these 3 personalities were identical by comparing the 3 personality traits of the dark triad with 3 other psychological aspects. They found that the correlation patterns were very different and concluded that psychopathy, narcissism, and Machiavellianism were indeed distinct. So, what's the difference? Narcissists tend to have a large sense of self, as they feel entitled and superior to those around them. Machiavellianism, on the other hand, tends to be more manipulative and selfish, and psychopaths are more insensitive as they lack empathy for others and act without thinking. They are all associated with varying degrees of deception, questionable morals, and self-interest. But what they do have in common is disagreeableness. It's also thought that there's...
So that was a good review of the dark triad and its traits. But how often is the dark triad going to show up in the real world, you may ask? Well, a good example of the dark triad would be John Gotti. He was a crime boss for the Gambino crime family in New York during the 80s and the 90s. He was really known for a lot of crimes, but he was arrested on racketeering and murder. He was an outspoken personality. He had this flamboyant style. He was a very charismatic and flashy guy. He felt that he was born to lead. He was a heroic figure. He felt that he was untouchable due to his social stature in New York and the country due to all of this media attention that he was receiving. He was known for this arrogance and this overinflated belief in his stature, which contributed to his downfall. He used his charisma to mask his true identity of being this crime boss. He always wanted to be at the top of the chain of command. He worked his way from the bottom to the top, and he had this thirst for power and fear in reward and punishment. His biggest achievement was honestly capturing the attention of the media and getting New York City and its neighbors to love him. But as a crime boss, he honestly was a failure because he didn't actually achieve very much. Another example would be Bernie Madoff. He was known to make the largest financial fraud in history. He did a Ponzi scheme that lasted for decades. His investors, they really liked him because he was known to be extremely respectable. He had high returns, nothing very too outlandish. Madoff really claimed to use this legitimate strategy that people really liked. At one point he stated, "I had more than enough money to support any of my lifestyle and my family's lifestyles. I didn't need to do this for that." He was stating he never did this for the money. He did this more for the manipulation of people. He created this front of respectability, generosity, and he liked to woo his investors through his charitable work. This is showing that he has extremely cunning, had this devious personality. He really cared only for himself, and he liked to exploit others. He was known as this top dog on Wall Street. He was the best of the best. People went to him for advice. All he really wanted to do was be liked and admired, showing off his narcissistic personality. So next, let's go into the more legal aspect of this. Let's go into the 8th Circuit court cases. Well, what is the 8th Circuit? They review cases tried in the United States district courts within the geographical areas of Arkansas, Iowa, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, North and South Dakota. They have panels of 3 judges, so they have 9 judges in total, and they have 3 judges whenever they are looking over a case, and then they switch out between those 3 judges to make sure everybody is working together. And then any case is allowed to be retried, whether that be civil or criminal. The appellate court will investigate whether the lower courts have correctly and reasonably applied the law. So let's look at a case. This is going to be Kelly versus Jason. So let's look at a couple facts. It takes place in South Dakota courts. It starts with a couple living in Iowa, and they have a child together. Eventually, the mom, Kelly, she moves to South Dakota for her job, but the dad, Jason, is going to stay in Iowa. Kelly gets pregnant again, but they end their marriage. They have this argument that ends their marriage. Jason then files for divorce in Iowa. While this is happening, Kelly doesn't let Jason see their kid at all. Through the divorce, Kelly claims that Iowa has zero jurisdiction over her or her children. Well, what is really going on here? Kelly is being extremely manipulative because she refuses to let Jason see his kids at all. She's going to make him wait hours and hours on end to see the kids at all, and then at last minute she's going to change time or location. She wants to put him on uneven footing. She wants this power and control in the situation. She's always going to make him work around her schedule. At one point, Kelly refuses to give Jason any information about the children. They end up in the hospital at one point for medical reasons. Jason then goes to the court saying, I have a right to know about my children's medical issues. Kelly then states, you don't have any right, you're not in their lives at all. She wants this power over Jason. She becomes extremely arrogant and entitled. She wants this personal gain of knowing that Jason is suffering. She wants these feelings of dominance, showing that she is extremely manipulative and she has this narcissistic side to her. Another case would be Douglas versus Susan. Couple of facts. Douglas is appealing on the basis that the trial court is incorrectly calculated. The trial court has incorrectly calculated his child support. He claims that the old number was made from incorrect evidence. Douglas was expecting a divorce in the original trial. He downplayed his income then. He hid and disposed of his assets before the trial. And then Susan, during his trial, stated that Douglas has a banking and financial degree, and then he's also worked with mortgages and life insurance his entire life, which we'll come back to later for this. But so what's going on during this case? Well, Douglas is hiding his assets to pay less. He's really just trying to manipulate the court and the judge to win in his favor. He's gone to extreme lengths to hide his income, which is known to be illegal. It counts as perjury. Because he's gone to these immoral means to obtain personal gain while showing his manipulative personality. But not only this, appealing this case really shows this entitlement and feelings of superiority because he still believes that he's right for hiding his assets, which again is illegal. And going back on what Susan did, the reason why she won in the first place is because she stated this evidence that Douglas should have known better, he's worked with money, he should never have misreported his finances, which is how she won in the first place, and which is how she won through the appellate court, because they sided with Susan, saying she's correct, he should never have misreported anything in the first place. Now let's go a little bit closer to home. Let's see a Nebraska court case. This is going to be Robert versus Robin. So, expert testimony from a psychologist has evaluated their children. She spoke on how the parenting styles of both parents affected their children. Robert had less of a relationship with the children, it was found, and then Robin had a strained relationship with the oldest child. It was known that the courts really wanted to keep all of the children together, so what's going on in this case? Well, eventually Robin went back to the courts to gather all of the children, and she wanted them to speak to the judge about how Robert treated the children. She wanted them to lie to the judge and say hateful and untrue things. She did this because she was losing power inside the relationship. She always had this power over Robert, and she was losing this power during the court battle, so she wanted them to say untrue things. She decided she was going to become aggressive. She wanted to start exploiting her children. And eventually, the kids started losing trust in her. They said, we're not going to do this. After she was losing control of this narrative, she became overly arrogant. She was becoming verbally abusive with them. She became self-destructive. She was sabotaging not only her relationship with the kids, but she was sabotaging herself. Eventually, she starts putting blame on Robert, she's saying, he did this, he's doing that, he's not showing up to here. And when a judge starts hearing this, they get these indicators of a parent becoming a narcissist. And once they feel that's going on, they know this situation is not well for the kids, and they decide that they're not going to go stay with Robin, that the kids are all going to stay with Robert, even though there's less of a relationship there. So what recommendations do I have for anybody who is dealing with any dark triad traits throughout the legal system? Well, I do believe that the Bar Association, which is where you have to go through to get this legal degree, they should train attorneys to recognize narcissism and manipulation. I do think that the Bar Association should also train judges to notice these traits as well, because if people are able to notice these traits, they can better have a better situation going on. And then I also think elements of coping with the dark triad traits should be part of a parent's plan, whether this be going to classes or having, if you notice these traits start showing up in a relationship, being able to step back. You can do that as well. And then what did I learn? Well, I've learned that some people will do anything to get to the top, whether this be through psychopathy or narcissism, through Machiavellianism. They're going to work their way to get to the top no matter what. They just want that power and control in the situation. I've also learned that traits of the dark triad traits are becoming more common within people inside the courts. The dark triad is seen in the legal environment more often than what people would really think. Because some people are willing to do whatever it takes to win, and that narcissism and the manipulated side is shown through some people, and it's just not really a good side that people want to be showing. So yeah.